Welcome to this explainer. I want you to close your eyes for just a second and imagine stepping into an abandoned room. The lights are off, the air is perfectly still, and the silence is, well, it's absolute. Instantly, you feel this visceral sense of unease. Maybe it's a sudden chill on the back of your neck, or that heavy, highly charged feeling that someone or something is standing just out of sight. We've all felt it, right? But why do certain spaces affect us so strongly? Why do some buildings feel perfectly ordinary while others feel inexplicably heavy, strange, or even straight up haunted? Okay, let's dive into this, because the answer is actually far more fascinating than any ghost story. What if that sudden chill or that strange pressure in the air isn't a supernatural occurrence at all? What if instead it's a deeply ingrained human reaction to environments that our minds are just desperately trying to make sense of? Today, we're reframing the entire concept of a haunting. We're going to look at how memory, emotion, history, and our very own biology create the ultimate illusion. Section 1. The physical environment. Let's start with the actual hardware of a haunting. Sound plays a massive, massive role here. Think about it for a second. Modern life is literally packed with noise. Engines, phones, ventilation systems. There's a constant background hum. So when you step into an old, abandoned place and that noise suddenly completely disappears, your brain notices the emptiness immediately. It hyperfixates on the silence. And suddenly, a strange acoustic echo, maybe water dripping from a pipe or a low-frequency vibration from some distant machinery, it creates real physical tension. Your brain takes those weird acoustics and it translates them directly into the chilling feeling of an invisible presence in the room. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact same process happening with temperature. Haunted places are notoriously described as being freezing cold. But the sudden drop in temperature, maybe from a drafty window, a damp stone wall, or an underground basement, that simply causes you to become physically tense and highly alert. The human body is incredibly sensitive to environmental changes. When the air feels wrong, your brain urgently searches for an explanation. It doesn't actually need a ghost, it just needs a signal that the environment is abnormal, and it interprets that uncanny chill as a threat. Then we've got to factor in lighting. Human vision is built for bright awareness, and honestly, it struggles terribly in low light. When you're standing in a dim hallway, your visual system just can't quite make out the details, so your imagination rushes right in to fill the gaps. Our ancestors were evolutionarily wired to fear the dark because, well, that's where predators hid. So today, when you see a shadow flickering from a street lamp outside, your ancient danger response kicks in, forcing your brain to see a lurking figure instead of just, an old coat on a hook. I mean, come on, we've all apologized to a piece of furniture in the dark, right? Consider how our senses decode decay. A musty smell immediately signals age and abandonment. Damp walls tell us a space isn't fresh or active anymore. Dust and mold practically scream endings and danger. Human beings are highly, highly sensitive to things ending. When an environment literally smells like neglect, it sends direct, primitive signals to your brain that something has died here. The decay itself is deeply unsettling to us. Section 2. The ancient survival brain. So that's the hardware, the physical space itself. Let's transition over to the software of our biology. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that humans are natural pattern seekers. We absolutely cannot stand random, meaningless information. If a light flickers or a floorboard creaks at the exact same time every night in an old house, we don't just accept it as random physics. We just don't. Our innate drive forces us to connect the dots. We turn a structural groan into a footstep and a draft into an intentional message. We're quite literally wired to create a narrative out of pure ambiguity. As our source material perfectly states, the human brain is not a passive camera. It doesn't just objectively record the world around us. When you step into a strange place, your mind is already asking 1,000 silent questions. Is this safe? Has something bad happened here? Do I even belong here? You're constantly scanning for danger, predicting, and filling in missing information, even when you don't consciously realize it's happening. Section 3, expectation and contagion. But our biology, that's only part of the story. Let's shift our focus to how our social networks and our pre-existing beliefs play into this. Let's move on and see how this builds into a rapid, real-time loop of confirmation bias. Step 1, you hear a spooky story about a local hotel. Step 2, you walk in, already fully expecting a mystery. Step 3, the old building settles and you misinterpret that totally ordinary sound. Step 4, boom, you confirm the ghost. An ordinary room becomes terrifying simply because someone primed you to fear it. You notice every single detail that supports the story and completely ignore the ones that don't. And the crazy part? We do this together. Human emotion is incredibly contagious. If you're exploring an old building with a group of friends, and just one person suddenly shivers, hesitates, or says, "Hey, I don't like this place," that fear spreads instantly. We are so sensitive to social cues. That single expression of unease multiplies the emotional energy in the room, fundamentally changing the location in everyone's mind. The space actually becomes a container for collective fear. Section 4. Memory, Time, and Architecture. Beyond social contagion, the way a physical space interacts with time is what truly charges the atmosphere. Think about these specific places: abandoned hospitals, empty schools, lonely roads, forgotten farmhouses, decaying factories. Notice a theme here? These are spaces intricately designed for human life, for voices, for movement, for work. When they sit empty, they feel deeply, fundamentally incomplete. The sudden removal of human presence creates this massive psychological vacuum, and our imagination immediately rushes in to fill that eerie void. Even the architecture itself completely messes with our heads. Think about the way buildings are laid out. High ceilings and long, echoing hallways naturally make us feel really small, exposed, and watched. Hidden angles, tight corners, and staircases that obscure our vision immediately activate our caution and curiosity simply because we can't see what's coming next. And those empty institutional rooms, like a hospital wing without any staff, they create a profound emotional gap that practically begs our imagination to populate it with ghosts of the past. This leads to what's often called the time slip sensation. Have you ever stood in an old church or maybe a historic battlefield right in the middle of a modern city? There's this eerie mismatch between modern life and the preserved traces of another era. It feels as if time is layered, like the past is lingering, just out of sight. We interpret that heavy, lingering history as a haunting because our mind senses the past hasn't fully left the building. Section 5. The True Mystery. So, we've looked at the acoustics, the biology, the architecture, and the storytelling. Let's bring all this together. Ultimately, our own physical and emotional states act as the absolute ultimate amplifier for horror. Think about things like fatigue, stress, anxiety, sleep deprivation, or personal grief. When we're tired, our resistance to fear drastically lowers. A late-night visit to an old house is terrifying because sleep deprivation makes the brain highly suggestible. And grief? Grief makes us incredibly raw and sensitive to loss. Very often, the haunting isn't coming from the building at all. It's coming from right within our own vulnerabilities. So the crucial point is perfectly captured right here in our source material. A building is never just bricks and wood. It is memory made physical. Haunted places shake our sense of control. They strip away our modern predictability and reveal our deeply ingrained nature as meaning-making creatures. We literally carry our inner worlds, our deepest fears, and our memories straight into those empty rooms, and the rooms simply reflect them right back to us. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. Why does silence become presence? Why does darkness become meaning? The next time you walk into a strange room and feel that sudden chill, that heavy pressure in the air, stop for a second and ask yourself what your mind is really doing. Is it a ghost? Or is it simply the beautiful, terrifying power of the human imagination, trying to give shape to the unknown? Think about that the next time you find yourself alone in the dark. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. And remember, keep questioning everything you see and everything you feel.